I like you feel something about wildlife animal sound. So have you heard that something lion tiger sound? So today you are going to feel something about the wild animal sound. So bear sound. This is the tiger sound. Or you feel something is better. So this is the wolf sound. So this is elephant sound. Rhinoceros sound. So how that's very nice seeing that the wild animals, how the beauty. Look at this, that all the wild animals sound as well as the nature of the wild animals. How that is giving the fire. Giving the fear of that the sound. Why I ask you to hear this the sound? Because today we are going to study the wild animals. So what's the important? So you should feel the beauty of the wild animals. So that's the purpose I have asked you to hear this sound. Unit number 22, Environmental Management. So the previous class we have studied several topics, how to manage the environment. So why it is the environmental, it's very important for our daily life. So how that the environmental support to the all living organisms. Unit number 22. Today we are going to study about environmental management. So through this the unit we have study how the environment is very important for all living organism. How we have to manage the environment in properly. So these are the things we have studied in the previous class. Today we are going to study wildlife and its conservations. When you take the environment, it's one of the factor of the environment, wildlife, animals as well as the plants. So it is necessary for us to conserve, to protect or to prevent from the danger. So this is the topic we are going to discuss today. What is wildlife? So wildlife refers to undomesticated animals living in their natural habitats. So the animals as well as the plants, they have to live with their natural habitats. Example, they have given that it may be a forest or grassland or deserts. An area without human habitations. So there should not be any human involvement or there should not be any human living. So that we refer that is a wildlife. So wildlife, it refers to undomesticated. We know that is a domesticated animal which we can grow in our house. But this is not a domesticated animal, undomesticated. That we call is a wild animals. So their habitats were in forest or grassland and desert without human habitations. So it is very important. So they are needed for managing biological diversity. So it is necessary for us, the wildlife animals, it is necessary to have the proper food chain, or they should maintain biological diversity. So it's very important. We cannot say that the wildlife it's not necessary for us. So wildlife animals, plants is necessary for us to maintain biological diversity. So it help in promoting economical activities that generate revenue through tourism. So not only that it's important or how that is a biodiversity, it help the economical activities, or it generate the foreigners or tourism. So because of the tourism we will get money. So conservation of the forest and wildlife is interrelated with each other. So we should know that we have to conserve or conservate the forest. While we are prevent or while we are conservation of the forest, then only the wildlife are able to live. Very simple, we can say that without forest the wildlife cannot live, or the wild animals cannot live, because their habitats is forest. Decline in wildlife populations. Wildlife of India is a great natural heritage. So naturally our India, how many million of wildlife animals as well as the plants. Exploitations of wildlife resource have decreased global wildlife populations by 52% between 1970 and 2014. So in between this year, so 52% of the wildlife resource decrease. So not only in India, global wildlife populations. So it means something is we have improper method, or we have exploitations which is disturb the wildlife animals. Over exploitations. So what's the reasons? Over exploitations and shrinking of forest cover area has resulted in animals become extinct. Some are threatened and some are on the verge of extinction. So what do you mean by that? So we are cutting the trees, or we are shrinking of the forest. So we reduce the area of the forest because of the urbanizations. So what happens? The forest shrinken. It's making small and small area. And sometimes it's we are threatening that. So when we are cutting the tree, what will happen? There are some wildlife based on and depend on the trees. So while we are cutting, where they go, there is no way to go out from that. Very important. So exploitations of the area, or cutting of the tree, or destroying the forest, so these always is a disturb the wildlife. In recent years, increase in human encroachment has posed a threat to India's wildlife. Encroachment, what means encroachment? Any entry into a area not previously occupied. So what do you mean by that? So we are entering into the forest, but the forest is covered by the wild animals. After entering us, so what will happen? The wildlife is no more from there or decrease. But the human activities increase in the forest. So that is the meaning of that. So according to that, so the human exploitations, it's always is disturb the wildlife animals. The aim of wildlife management. So how we have to manage wildlife? The main aim of wildlife conservation are to control and limited exploitations of species. So what we have to do? Control and limited exploitation of the species. So cutting the tree always is carried or more amount of the trees or more number of the trees while we are cutting. What will happen? The forest shrinken. So the wildlife animals also will disturb. So we have to control or we have to limit the exploitations to preserve the plants and animals from extinction. So we have to preserve the plants and animal from no more or from destroyed. So we have to preserve. Preserve means we have to protect the plants. We have to protect the animals. The third one, maintenance of threatened species and protect species which are on the verge of extinction. So something or some species are no more, so we have to maintain or we have to give the proper protections to this type of the species. So we have to avoid of the exploitations over that a particular area or particular forest. So these are the some of the aim of the wildlife management. The next one, preserve the endangered species. Endangered species no more. So it is necessary for us. So we have to keep on our concentrations. So endangered species by preserve or give the proper habitat to the plants and animals. The next one, to study the ecological relationship of the plants and animals in natural habitats. So we have to study the ecological or ecosystem relations, how they maintain the proper ecosystem or natural habitats of the animals as well as plants. We know that all the wild animal cannot be live all over the world. We cannot say that all the plants can be able to live all over the world. So a particular plants have a particular situations. A particular animals have the particular situations. So we have to study the relations of the ecosystem and the wild animals. Then only we come to know that the exploitations always is a disturb the wild animals. Hunting and poaching should be prohibited. So what do you mean poaching? Cooking in similar liquid. We can call that is a soup. So like that. So we should not is hunting the wild animals for our cooking purpose. So this is very important for all the humans. So we are hunting many wild animal for our cooking purpose. So this is one of the dangerous habit which always give to the wild animals. Establishment of natural park. So we have to establish national parks. So we have to explain or we have to extend more national park which prevent or which give the proper habitat to the wild animals, wildlife sanctuaries, protected area, biosphere reservoirs. So this is we have to give more important. So we have to establish natural parks, wildlife sanctuaries, protected area and biosphere reservoirs. So these are is help the wild animals and live happily. The Wildlife Protections Act was established in 1972. The provisions of the act are, so what are the act? So the law is given or established in 1972, prohibits killing and hunting of specified animals. So government is given the specified animals. So what will happen if you kill means, so that you consider as the criminal. So because they have the act we call the Wildlife Protection Act, so which is prevent the destroying or disturbing of the wild animals, constitute sanctuaries, national parks and closed areas for wildlife conservations. So this is very important for us. So we have to constitute many sanctuaries, national park and close the area for the wildlife conservations. So we have to control the entry of the human being inside the forest. So automatically what will happen? The wild animals can be live properly. Specific scheme for preservation of endangered species. So we should have the proper scheme for preservation of endangered species, because if you live like this means the endangered species later no more. So we have to given proper scheme which preservation of the endangered species, constitute central zoo authorities, recognition of the zoos. So constitute the central zoo authorities and recognize the zoos. So we have to increase the number of the zoos or sanctuaries, restrict, regulate and prohibits trade in wild animals and product obtained from them. So we should have regulated and prohibited and restricted against the wild animals. So these are is help the wild life animals be happy. So what are the organizations involved in conservation of wildlife? Indian Board for Wildlife. So this is one of the organizations. Nearly they have given 7 organizations which is a help for the conservations or protect the wild animals. The first one, Indian Board for Wildlife, short form IBWL. So it means Indian Board for Wildlife. Second one, World Wildlife Fund for Nature. So short form WWF. Next, Wild Conservation Union, WCN. The fourth one, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resource, IUCN. IUCN means International Union for Conservation of National and Natural Resource. The fifth one, conservations of international trade in endangered species. So short form CITES. Sixth one, Bombay Natural History Society, BNHS. The last one, Wildlife Preservation Society of India, Dakaram. So these are some of the organizations which encourage the wildlife or which prevent the exploitations of the forest or which prevent the wild animals from dangerous conditions. So these are the organizations. It's good for the wildlife animals as well as wild plants. Jim Corbett National Park was the first to be established in 1936 in Uttarakhand, India. So we should know that it's the first national park. One more questions may ask. There are 15 biosphere reservoirs in India. There are nearly 15 biosphere reservoirs, which means they are reserved for that. It means the avoid the human exploitations. And the Nilgiri is the biosphere reservoirs in Tamil Nadu. So there are 15 biosphere reservoirs in India. Particularly in Tamil Nadu, Nilgiri is considered as a biosphere reservoirs. So these are some of the general knowledge, as well as there is a possible to ask the question answer. Radhika Ramaswamy, a native of Venkatachalapuram village, Theni district in Tamil Nadu, was the first Indian woman to restrict an international reputations as wildlife photographer. So she is the first woman considered as wildlife photographer. So it may ask us one more question. His patience is towards the birds photography, a book on wildlife titled The Best of Wildlife Movements was published in November 2014. Reputation is nothing, the state of being held in high esteem on and honor. Infobits. Wildlife Conservation Initiative in India. Project Tiger and Project Elephant has been launched in 1973 and 1992 respectively. There are two projects approval. Project Tiger and Project Elephant has launched in 1973 as well as 1992. Crocodile Conservation Project was launched in 1976. Sea Turtle Conservation Project was launched in 1999. Indian Rhino Vision 2020 is to be conserve at least 3,000 greater one-horn rhinos in Assam, India by 2020. So these are the things, something we should know about wild animals. How the project which help for to conserve the wildlife. Next, soil erosions. Soil erosions, should know that a top layer of the soil contain humus and mineral salt which are vital for the growth of the plants. So the humus and the minerals which is present in the top layer of the soil, which is have the vital role for the growth of the plants. So soil erosion is nothing, the removal of upper layer of soil by wind and water is considered soil erosions. So the top of soil are removed by wind or water, so that we call is a soil erosions. Soil erosion causes a significant loss of humus, nutrition, and decrease the fertility of soil. So after the soil erosion, it will lose the humus, nutrition, and soil fertility. So what is the soil fertility? The soil should have something for the plant growth. We call it something, it's the nutritions. The soil should have some nutritions for the growth of the plants. If there is a nutrition in soil, means the plants cannot live. That type of the soil we called sterile soil. If they have the nutrition for the growth of the plants, that soil we called fertility soil. So if the soil erosion is take over in the soil, what will happen? The topper layer of the soil may be carried. So what will happen? That soil become sterile, or the soil is not suitable for the growth of the plants. Agents of soil erosion. Agent of soil erosion are high velocity of wind, air current, flowing water, landslides, human activities. So the human activity may carry the deforestation, cutting of the trees, farming and mining. It's nothing, so we will get that the petroleum. So after disturbing the soil, what will happen? That will be disturbed, and overcrossing by cattle. So these are some of the agent. They may ask us here 2 more questions. So when you take that agent, it may be a wind, or it may be a air current, or it may be a water. So maybe it carried by the human activities. So that we call is a deforestation, so farming and mining, and overcrossing by cattle. Management of soil erosions. Retain vegetations covered so that soil is not exposed. Cattle crossing should be controlled. So we should not have continuous cattle crossing. So what will happen? So it will disturb. So we have to proper vegetations over on that. So we have to cultivate on the soil, and we have to avoid the cattle crossing. Crop rotations and soil management to improve the soil organic matters. So we should have the proper crop rotations. So it means, so this times we are cultivating the paddy, means next times we have to cultivate the pulses. So next time, so we have to cultivate another type of the plants. So it means, so each type of the plants is absorb different type of the nutrients. So before that, the nutrients may be replaced by the nature. So particularly cultivate the same plants in the same area, so it will not give the proper nutrition to the plants. So crop rotations also is help the management of the soil fertility. Runoff water should be stored in a catchment. So we have to avoid the runoff water. So by the catchment, so we have to build a small dam or wall which catch the run of the water. Deforestations, tossing and control pulling So we have to avoid the deforestations, and we have to make that soil loose, so the farmers they will go for that, no, that activities we call that. And wind speed can be controlled by planting trees in the form of the shelter belt. So we have to control the planting trees in the form of the shelter belt. So we cultivate the plants, or when we cultivate the trees on the soil, so it will control the speed of the wind. So it will covered. It means the soil is covered. So this all is help the management of the soil erosions. So thank you. Through this video, so we have studied that what you call the wildlife and its conservations. So first we have studied the wildlife, what you mean by the wildlife, so how that is lived, so what concern which help the exploitations of the forest, so that also we have studied. So how that the decline in wildlife populations, so what are the reasons, so how to help the wildlife animals. So we should have the afforestations instead of deforestations. Aim of the wildlife management, how we have to manage the wildlife for what, so we have to give importance for the wildlife. So this we have studied. So there are some points, and what are the act against the wildlife, so what are the rules we should follow that, so that also we have discussed. And the organizations which for the wildlife animals, so there are 7 organizations we have studied. And the first national park, Corbett National Park, and 15 biosphere reservoirs in India. The Nilgiri is the biosphere reservoirs in Tamil Nadu. So these are the things we have studied. Radhika Ramaswamy, who is the first wildlife photographer, so he has published the book, photo book. It means they have the photos, the best of wildlife movements and wildlife conservations project. So what are the projects we have studied? So there are several projects, so which year they are launched. And next we have studied what is mean by the soil erosions. So what are the agents of the soil erosion, management of the soil erosion. So this we have studied. Thank you.